Hello, Cassandra. Thank you so much for being with us today. Can you share with our viewers whereabouts you're based and how they can get in contact with you?
Hi Heather, thanks very much for asking me to be involved in this. Cassandra Scott from Laurus Bookkeeping. We are a bookkeeping practice located in Forest Lake in Brisbane, but we service clients and support clients right around Australia and work with clients overseas. If anybody's interested in touching base and seeing how we can assist, bookkeepers at laurus, laurus.com.au, or give our office a call on 07 3879 2090.
Thank you so much for that. Now, can I ask you before we jump into it, why do you like using Receipt Bank for your practice and for your clients?
We love using it because it streamlines what we do with our clients. It takes us away from the routine of sitting down doing, mundane data entry, and automates that as much as we possibly can for our clients. Because we can work more efficiently with our clients on the routine stuff, that actually frees us up to add value to our clients in other areas.
So how much time do you think Receipt Bank saves you in your business?
Look, it varies on a client-by-client basis. So clients that have got very simple coding needs, it can sometimes save us sort of 60 to 80% of the manualised data entry that we used to do. For other clients, it might be 30 to 40%, particularly if we've got to still make decisions about tracking categories or splits, or it's an invoice that, or a supplier where you may code to more than one GL code. So it can be between 30 to 80% depending on the client and their requirements, but we try and automate and maximise that wherever possible.
So I know that you just mentioned about the splitting options, and this is possibly something that you know about, but it's good to mention while we're talking and people are listening in. One of the things you can ask Receipt Bank to do is if you do have a regular split, so if it's a split between business and personal on a particular supplier, they can actually overlay a template for that. So I know for my petrol, it's always business 80%, personal 10%, and that can be inbuilt into Receipt Bank for you specifically if need
Yeah, we were aware of that, and that's a fantastic function. Where we find often is those similar receipts where the client is actually purchasing other items on the receipt.
Yeah.
So the packet of ciggies or the soft drink or the 3 chocolate bars for the kids at the end of the day. So that's the sort of stuff that we're looking at as well.
Yeah, the bespoke, unusual,
Yeah,
unexpected ones,
yeah,
and that you have to jump in
yeah.
and readjust.
Absolutely. And we've got some clients that we know are absolutely good kids and never mix personal and business. Others we know are quite problematic, and we need to be a little bit more diligent about those.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that time saved from using Receipt Bank, you did briefly mention that you're able to value add for your clients. So in your practice, with the time saved, what do you think you're doing with that time saved?
So it's a couple of different things. We're taking on more work. We're focusing on higher value work with our clients. So you'd be looking at management reporting, systems implementation, budgeting, cash flow, those sorts of things that clients may not necessarily have considered because the bulk of our time had historically been taken up with routine compliance work, so the drudge of data entry. So again, it varies from client to client, and with some clients they don't need those services, so it enables us to focus on other clients and help support others as well.
Excellent. So you're able to replace the lower value work with the higher value work, which is better for your bottom line and better for your client's bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we blend that with a fixed price pricing model or a value-based pricing model with our clients, we can still increase our revenues as well because we're becoming far more efficient with what we do. And as we continue to refine the use of Receipt Bank with specific clients, that just continues to increase our margins.
Excellent. Yeah, and I think that with these things, it is there is a constant refinement necessary, and so hopefully with these videos people can actually take a time to think about what they're actually doing and think, is there some further things that they could further refine to help them in their business?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think if there's a perception that it's set and forget, that's slightly flawed. It's still something that needs oversight and review and consideration about on a client by client basis, because no business is static. They all do continue to change and evolve in different ways, and you've got to be considerate of that as you're working with it as a tool.
Absolutely. So if we can jump in and start looking through your settings, we're now looking at the general page and we're looking at your system settings. And under the block payment status, you've got receipts paid, invoices not paid, credit notes paid. So what was your thought process behind this?
The majority of receipts will be your credit card purchases, so your fuel, your little bits in shops, anything over the counter. So generally they are paid, and these days most receipts will actually have the credit card that's been used on it, particularly if you're talking fuel, which is what we deal with quite frequently. So having it paid was quite logical. It means it sits in the correct account in Xero. We know it's been paid, and once it's in there, it's just a simple case of matching with the transaction as it comes through the bank feed. Invoices and credit notes we left as not paid, as there's often consideration that needs to be made about those, and they may be paid as part of a larger batch in an accounts payables process, and we actually do that for a number of our clients. We have data that feeds in through Receipt Bank into the accounts payables ledger, and we provide accounts payables services, so that's why we would flag them as being not paid.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. If we jump to the next block, it says due dates for invoices, and you have default to a number of days after the invoice date and how many days you've selected 28. What was your thought process behind that?
It's basically, unless a supplier has given us terms of trade, we default to 4 weeks, 28 days or 30 days actually. Because if they can't tell us what their terms of payment are, then we'll pay them in our terms.
Excellent.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's excellent. Thank you for that. The next block down is net amount. Choose whether to show the net amount of downloadable CSVs, and you've set that as off. Yeah.
Look, we very, very rarely use that. The only time we're looking at downloadable CSVs is when we're exporting expense reports from Receipt Bank into Xero, and we're always looking at the total dollar value, not the net amount, so not the ex-GST amount, because it's generally linked to a reimbursement to an employee. So gross is what's important, not net.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So then in the next section down, you've got categorization. So configure the settings that determine how Receipt Bank categorizes your items. You have auto categorization on and include new suppliers on. The category display includes code and name, and the category sort includes code. What was your thought process behind that?
So using auto categorization and with new suppliers is basically taking advantage of Receipt Bank's intelligence. We're not going to be the first person using a particular supplier, and if they're intelligent enough to suggest to us what category it will be in, we're happy to take that. It's not always right, and we do go back in and customise as required, but if we in any way can cut down the thinking and the work that we have to do, that's why we've allowed those to be on. So it's both categorisation and for new suppliers as well. In terms of the category displays and the category sorts, the reason we still use code and name is we're dealing with a lot of clients who have come from legacy desktop accounting systems who are very code-centric in the way they were set up. So, they understand that a 4 is income, a 5 is cost of goods, and a 6 is expenses. So often it's a quick way for both ourselves and our clients to get to the code that they need if they're manually having to select them.
Thank you for sharing that. Can I just get you to scroll down the screen a little bit there?
Sure.
Now, in the final block, we have archiving, and you have your items will be moved to archive after these actions are taken. Published, yes. Export to CSV, no. Added to an expense report, yes. Exported to PDF, no. What was your thought process behind that?
Basically, these map our process, because we hook into Xero with all of our clients, so we don't actually need to export anything to CSV, and we don't need to export anything to PDF, so they were just straight no's. We don't use that functionality at all. Obviously, if something's been published to Xero, we no longer need the transaction visible on the inbox in Receipt Bank, so we just get rid of it through the archive. And similarly, if it's been added to an expense report, we don't need to continue to see that in the inbox in Xero, so we just archive it. And if we can get that happening automatically, it's one less thing that we have to do as well.
Thank you for sharing that. Can I ask you to scroll up to the top of the screen and click on integration? Thank you. So we're now looking at the integration page, and you have at the top that you've integrated with Xero. Published to multiple currencies is turned on. Default published to destination, you've selected purchases. Publish items to purchases as awaiting payment. Publish expense reports to purchases as awaiting payment. What's your thought process behind that?
Yeah, well, our Xero organisation has multi-currency enabled, so it's quite logical, and we do receive invoices in a non-Australian dollar currency, so we allow Receipt Bank to pick that up as well. We publish to purchases in the majority of instances, so even with clients where they have a lot of spend money transactions, if it's a situation where we're unclear about which bank account the spend has gone from, and also those clients and ourselves that often purchase things via cash, putting it through to purchases allows us to deal with variable accounts and sources of funds in a more effective way than if we used the bank setting. Publish again to purchases as awaiting payment. Generally, because we're using Xero, it doesn't really matter. We're going to be reconciling through the bank feed anyway, so it doesn't matter whether it's paid or awaiting payment. We still have the same process going through the bank feed. We leave it as awaiting payment as well, because again, if we don't know which account that it has been paid from, it enables us to make that decision as we're reconciling transactions or reviewing at end of month or end of quarter. And again, publishing expense reports as purchases, we pick those up in a payment run to reimburse employees, or if it's through loan accounts, we can easily make the payment against the loan account. In terms of the tax settings, we let Receipt Bank decide. Again, you know, there's a lot of development sitting behind Receipt Bank that provides a level of intelligence in that, and it's about maximising what Receipt Bank can automate for us as much as possible. So we do use the tax list from Xero because that's what we do need to map back to, and it also means that for those suppliers who we know are non-standard GST, so GST-free suppliers, we can easily deal with those as well within Receipt Bank without thinking too hard about it.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. So the next block there we have is automatic publishing, and you have it set to off with several items there, several exceptions ticked. What is your thought process behind that, Cassandra?
We set publishing, auto-publishing more so at the supplier level than globally, and it goes back to the original point that some suppliers, it's very easy, and for some clients it's very easy to have the document come into Receipt Bank, have Receipt Bank extract the information and have it feed through to Xero. There's no intervention required. However, in some instances we do know that there still needs to be a human in between it to make decisions, so that's why we don't publish all items. We've also made exceptions. Things like ATM withdrawals, statements and remittance advices, delivery notes and mileage are not accounting transaction documents, so we don't need those to go through to Xero. If we did, we'd just have to deal with them, which is a time issue. We do archive those items so that they're available if we ever do need to go back to them. We don't bother about deleting them, but we only leave receipts, invoices and credit notes basically publishing through to Xero. Anything else is redundant.
Thank you very much for sharing that. Can I ask you to go up the screen and click on My Details? And can I get you to scroll to the bottom of the screen? Thank you very much. So we're now looking at the My Details section, and we're looking at the final block, which is the notification email settings. And you have it set up to go on a frequency of daily with acknowledgements, account processing and publishing all on. What was your thought process behind this?
This is probably a setting that was set up right in the very, very beginning that I've really never paid much consideration to. I figured I'd rather see too much information than not enough. We generally don't review any of the email digests about what has or hasn't been published because we tend to work from the data that sits in the inbox. That usually gives us any exceptions or anything that's still being published or has errors attached to it. So I have to admit with my notification email settings, they actually go into an email clutter account, and when I see them there, they get deleted automatically.
Oh, okay. Well, if you click on the drop-down option, I think you can change it.
I know.
We can change it to...
we can change it to weekly if we want to be.
Oh,
and,
but I guess if you click on the on and turn it off, if you turn everything off, then it'll turn everything off for you.
It will, yeah.
Yes, so.
It's one of those things that it's good to still have them coming through. Yeah. And when I say I do delete them, there is a quick glance given to them. And, when you're looking at the same thing over and over again, if there's something in there that's actually abnormal, it draws your eyes to it. So, you can often pick up anything that is an abnormal statement in an email where you're getting a daily digest. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today and sharing this information with us. Can I ask you to remind our listeners and viewers how they can get in contact with you, Cassandra?
Yes, certainly. Cassandra Scott from Laurus Bookkeeping. Our email address is bookkeepers@laurus, laurus.com.au or 0738792090.
Thank you so much.